Dare to venture down Bizarre Boulevard, a realm of mysterious creatures and strange occurrences that defies the boundaries of reality. No matter which path you choose, remember that all roads eventually lead to this chilling and enigmatic destination. The Rat Man Chronicles, Episode 1. The midnight air clung to the city like a shroud, the flickering streetlights casting eerie shadows on the damp pavement. Mary Hammond walked through the dimly lit streets, her footsteps echoing with an unsettling persistence. The weight of the unsolved cases she had been researching bore down on her like the oppressive darkness that blanketed the city. Mary had always been drawn to the unexplained, the enigmatic stories that wove their way through the tapestry of Chicago's history. A journalism student in her final year at the University of Chicago, she was desperate to find the story that would captivate readers and launch her career. She had spent countless hours poring over newspaper clippings and police reports, searching for the thread that would lead her to the heart of the city's mysterious past. "Mary, you need to let it go. You're obsessed," her roommate Lisa had warned her earlier that day, her voice tinged with concern. "I can't, Lisa. I feel like I'm on the verge of something big, something that could change everything," Mary had replied, her eyes filled with a fiery determination. As she walked through the desolate streets, the chill wind whispering through the branches of the skeletal trees, Mary couldn't shake the feeling that the city was hiding a dark secret. She could sense the presence of something sinister lurking just beneath the surface, like the murky waters of the Chicago River, concealing untold horrors beneath its murky depths. Suddenly, a distant scream pierced the night, sending a shiver down Mary's spine. She froze in her tracks, her heart pounding in her chest. She strained her ears, hoping to catch another sound that would tell her it was just a trick of her imagination. But the night remained silent, as if holding its breath. "Help me, please!" A woman's voice cried out again, her voice desperate and terrified. Mary's instincts kicked in, propelling her toward the source of the scream. As she raced down the shadowy alleyways, her pulse quickened with each footfall. Fear mingled with adrenaline, creating a potent cocktail that fueled her determination. When she reached the mouth of the alley, Mary found herself face to face with a tall, handsome man in his 40s. His intense gaze held a hint of danger, and his well-worn leather jacket and badge identified him as Detective David Winkfield. "Are you all right, miss?" he asked, his voice deep and authoritative. "I heard a scream! Someone needs help!" Mary panted, still trying to catch her breath. The detective's eyes narrowed, studying her for a moment before responding. "I'm on it, but it's not safe for you to be out here alone. There's something you should know about this city, something that's been hidden for far too long." The gravity in his voice sent a shiver down Mary's spine, igniting her curiosity. As the detective led her to a nearby diner to escape the chilling night, she couldn't help but feel that she had stumbled upon the very story she had been searching for, one that would forever change her life and the fate of Chicago itself. The neon lights of the diner cast a warm glow through the fogged-up windows, providing a stark contrast to the bleak, foreboding darkness outside. Detective David Winkfield led Mary to a corner booth, the red vinyl squeaking beneath them as they slid in. A sense of unease hung in the air like an unspoken secret. Mary's curiosity was piqued, and her journalist instincts took over. "What is it that you think I should know, Detective? What's been hidden for so long?" He hesitated for a moment, his eyes scanning the diner as if searching for eavesdroppers. Satisfied that they were alone, he leaned in closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "There are things in this city, Mary. Dark, twisted things that most people would prefer to ignore. I've been chasing one of them for years." Mary's heart raced as she listened, her hands gripping the edge of the table. "What is it?" Detective Winkfield hesitated again, the shadows of the diner seeming to close in around him. "It's an old legend, something most people dismiss as an urban myth. They call it the Rat Man." Mary's eyes widened, a shiver running down her spine. The name alone conjured images of a monstrous, vile creature lurking in the shadows of the city. She felt the room grow colder as the detective continued. "The Rat Man is said to prowl the Red Line, preying on unsuspecting passengers. I've been investigating a series of bizarre and gruesome deaths that all seem to be connected to this entity. People just don't want to believe it, but the evidence is there." A chill crept over Mary as she recalled her grandmother's stories of the Rat Man, tales that had once haunted her childhood nightmares. She had dismissed them as mere folklore, but now, sitting across from Detective Winkfield, the reality of the horror struck her like a dagger. "I've heard of the Rat Man before," she confessed, her voice trembling. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about it when I was a child." Detective Winkfield's eyes widened in surprise and then narrowed with determination. "Then you know why we need to expose the truth. People need to know what's lurking beneath the city, hiding in the shadows. I can't do this alone, Mary. I need someone like you, someone who isn't afraid to delve into the darkness and bring the truth to light." The detective's words echoed through Mary's mind, and she realized that this was the story she had been searching for, the story that would define her career. As a wave of terror and excitement washed over her, she knew she couldn't resist the allure of the Rat Man. "I'll help you, Detective," she whispered, sealing her fate. "Together, we'll uncover the truth about the Rat Man and expose the darkness that hides beneath this city." In that dimly lit corner of the diner, their chance encounter had set in motion a chain of events that would lead them into the heart of terror, forever changing their lives and the fate of Chicago. Mary's heart raced as she left the diner, the cold night air biting at her cheeks. The conversation with Detective Winkfield had stirred memories long buried in the recesses of her mind, memories of her grandmother's chilling tales of the Rat Man. She remembered sitting by the crackling fire, her grandmother's voice weaving a sinister tapestry of horror as she spun the dark legend. As she walked through the moonlit streets, Mary recalled the details of the stories. The Rat Man, a monstrous creature with the body of a man and the head of a rat, was said to lurk in the city's shadows. Its grotesque visage struck terror into the hearts of all who dared to venture into the darkness. Its beady eyes, black as coal, seemed to glow with a sinister malevolence, and its claws were sharp enough to tear through flesh with ease. "Mary, child, don't ever go near the red line at night," her grandmother had warned her, her voice trembling with fear. "The Rat Man waits there, hungry for the souls of the unwary. I've seen the terror in the eyes of those who have crossed its path. You must promise me, Mary, that you'll stay away from that cursed place." Mary had dismissed her grandmother's stories as nothing more than the ramblings of an old woman, desperate to keep her granddaughter safe. But now, as she considered Detective Winkfield's revelation, the truth seemed far more sinister. "What if she was right?" Mary murmured to herself, her breath forming ghostly wisps in the cold air. "What if the Rat Man is real, and it's been stalking the city all this time?" Her thoughts turned to the victims, the unsuspecting passengers on the Red Line who had met their grisly end at the hands of the Rat Man. She imagined their final moments, their screams echoing through the dark tunnels as the creature descended upon them. The image sent a shudder down her spine, but it only fueled her determination to uncover the truth. As Mary made her way home, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She glanced over her shoulder, her heart pounding in her chest as she searched the shadows for any sign of the Rat Man. But the night remained silent, leaving her with nothing but her own fear and the haunting memories of her grandmother's stories. She knew that she was stepping into the heart of darkness, but she was not alone. With Detective Winkfield by her side, Mary was determined to expose the horrifying truth and put an end to the terror that had haunted her city for far too long. And perhaps in doing so, she could finally lay her grandmother's old tales to rest. In the days that followed, Mary and Detective Winkfield immersed themselves in the murky depths of Chicago's history, their search for answers leading them through dusty archives and forgotten corners of the city. They pored over yellowed newspaper clippings and ancient tomes, seeking any trace of the Rat Man in the annals of the past. It was in a crumbling old library that they uncovered a chilling piece of evidence, a tattered journal, its pages stained and brittle with age. The journal, written by a man named Samuel O'Donnell, detailed the grisly events surrounding the Great Fire of 1871. Amidst the tales of destruction and chaos, Samuel spoke of a terrifying figure that emerged from the flames, the Rat Man. "The creature was like nothing I had ever seen before," Samuel had scrawled in shaky handwriting. "It stood on two legs, its body twisted and grotesque, like a mockery of a man. Its head was that of a rat, with beady eyes that glinted with malice. It stalked the burning streets, feasting on the fear and despair of the people trapped within the inferno. As Mary read the passage aloud, her voice quivering with terror, she could feel the malevolent presence of the Rat Man reaching through the centuries. It was as if the very words on the page were a conduit, connecting her to the evil that had haunted Chicago for generations. Detective Wingfield slammed his fist on the table, the sound echoing through the hushed library. "This is it, Mary. This is the proof we need. The Rat Man isn't just a legend, it's a living, breathing monster that has been terrorizing this city for over a century." Their discovery only heightened the sense of urgency as the gruesome deaths on the Red Line continued to mount. The authorities remained skeptical, dismissing the notion of the Rat Man as nothing more than a morbid urban myth. But Mary and Detective Wingfield knew better, and they were determined to bring the horrifying truth to light. Their investigation led them to the darkest corners of the city, where the Rat Man's malevolent presence seemed to linger like a foul stench. They interviewed witnesses and survivors, their haunted eyes and trembling voices painting a vivid picture of the horror that stalked the shadows of Chicago. As they delved deeper into the city's dark past, Mary began to feel the weight of the Rat Man's presence bearing down on her, as if the creature was watching her every move. She would often wake in the middle of the night, her heart pounding in her chest, the feeling of being watched still lingering in the air. But she refused to give in to fear, her resolve only strengthened by the knowledge that she was not alone in her quest. With Detective Wingfield by her side, Mary was determined to expose the horrifying truth of the Rat Man and put an end to the reign of terror that had haunted Chicago for far too long. And in doing so, she would finally put to rest the nightmares that had plagued her since childhood. The dim glow of the streetlights cast eerie shadows as Mary and Detective Wingfield walked through the desolate streets of Chicago, their footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence. The city had taken on a sinister air, as if the very buildings themselves were holding their breath, waiting for the next horrific act of the Rat Man. "We need to find it," Detective Wingfield said, his voice hard and determined. "We need to catch the Rat Man and put an end to this nightmare once and for all." Mary nodded, the cold wind biting at her cheeks as she pulled her coat tighter around her. "But how do we even begin? It's like chasing a ghost." Detective Wingfield stopped, staring down at the dark, empty tracks of the Red Line. "We follow the trail of blood," he said, his voice cold as steel. "We track the creature's every move, and we hunt it down." They spent their nights stalking the Red Line, their eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of the Rat Man. They questioned the homeless and the lost, those who dwelt in the forgotten corners of the city where the Rat Man was said to hide. They listened to their tales, their voices filled with terror as they recounted their encounters with the creature that haunted their dreams. It was during one of these late-night excursions that Mary stumbled upon a lead that seemed to bring them one step closer to the truth. A homeless man named Old Jim, his face worn and weathered by the years, claimed to have seen the Rat Man in the abandoned subway tunnels beneath the city. "I was down there searching for scraps when I saw it," Old Jim whispered, his voice shaking with fear. "I could feel its eyes on me, staring at me from the shadows. It was just like the stories say, part man, part rat, all evil." Determined to find the creature's lair, Mary and Detective Wingfield descended into the bowels of the city, their flashlights cutting through the pitch-black darkness of the tunnels. The air was thick with decay, the remnants of a once-thriving transit system now reduced to a forgotten graveyard. The further they ventured into the labyrinth, the more they felt the sinister presence of the Rat Man closing in around them. They could hear the faint sound of scratching echoing through the tunnels, as if the creature were just out of sight, taunting them with its proximity. As they turned a corner, their flashlights suddenly illuminated a horrifying sight. The mangled remains of a victim, their body torn apart by monstrous claws. The sight sent a shudder down Mary's spine, a visceral reminder of the deadly consequences of their pursuit. "We're getting closer," Detective Wingfield whispered, his voice filled with a mixture of dread and determination. "We have to press on, Mary. We can't let this monster claim any more lives." Together they delved deeper into the darkness, their hearts pounding in their chests as they closed in on the Rat Man's lair. They knew that the truth they sought was waiting for them in the shadows, and that the cost of their pursuit might be higher than they could ever imagine. But they refused to back down, driven by the knowledge that they were the city's last hope against the terrifying force that had haunted its streets for over a century. Thank you for listening to the Rat Man Chronicles. Join us for more episodes.